World Team Rapid and Blitz Championships happened in London recently, and all the best players in the world were there. There were a lot of controversies, so I thought it'd be cool to have a look at them and see what my opinions were as a national master that's played a lot over the board. So the first one, and I think this is the worst one, because what would happen if there weren't any cameras from Chess India and arbiters present? So here we have Livio, who's a talented junior with white pieces in a much worse position against a grandmaster with the black pieces. He's about to make a massive blunder. So you can see he's allowing his king and his queen to be secured, and we can see here there's no debate about whether or not the queen is on which square, because the grandmaster with black here knows that white's played his queen to g5 here, and it's just lost now because it's just going to take the queen when the king moves away from check, and it's quite an easy win then. However, he notices that queen is kind of like on half a square, and so he's going to make a massive drama out of that. And what I want you guys to think about is, what would you do if there was no arbiter present? Let's say it was at your local club and there was no camera watching, and just think how differently this would play out against a junior, because the junior's only around 2,000 rating. He's an improving player. He's very high online, but also his opponent's a prestigious grandmaster, and that can affect how he gets treated with his decisions. Because I've seen this myself actually. Grandmasters can sometimes just angrily debate things even that are wrong, and they might get the benefit of the doubt because they get so much respect from being professional. And so this is because, let's have a look at this. So he's gonna now debate whether or not it's on g4 or g5. Yeah, so he then tries to adjust the piece so it looks like it's more on g4, which is pretty bad. Now just imagine, right? No arbiters present. Let's say it's like your normal weekend tournament. The arbiters on the other side of the playing hall. You can imagine how this situation would turn into the junior played queen g4. Not that it was adjusted wrongly, but that he actually played queen g4, not g5. Because really, without the camera watching, you've only got his word be his word, and this can cause massive controversy. And I've seen this happen before. Over the board, similar sort of situations, because you're kind of relying on trust, aren't you? Really, like two players play each other. This is one of the reasons we have notation where people write down moves quite often to stop lying and stuff. But at the same time, you're still relying. It's just specifically when it comes to things like this, that players are going to play in good faith. Yeah, so you see there, he said it was never on g5, but clearly it was. And so here you have the people from Chess India. But what's interesting about this is count the number of arbiters in these photos, right? Because I count like four arbiters, and all international ones. Because you've got Lance there. I can see Adam Ralph is watching here as well. Then you've obviously got, so Lance is guy there, and then you've got other arbiters coming around, like the main arbiter. Yes, they have a massive debate now. Yeah, so now they look at the video from ChessBase, which kind of just shows what happened, right? But again, count the number of arbiters. You've got Adam Ralph there, got one of the main ones here. You've got Lance, who we've already seen walking around here, and then you've got the two people who are looking at the video, who are like the specific managers of the section. Now, just imagine none of them are there, and the person who's playing with the black pieces here can just make up whatever he likes. So he can say, that Livio here played queen g4. He can literally just say he played queen g4 and then he adjusted it to g5, and he can just lie, basically. And I've heard stories that, particularly when players go to foreign countries, that sometimes the team members of the person lying can actually back him up and say, yeah, he definitely did that 100%. And that's the sort of thing that's kind of lame, that you don't like in chess over the board, because you kind of want people to be honest.
We should stop now, eh? They should decide about it.
It actually takes a long time for them to make a decision here, which to me just means that if they weren't there, imagine what happens then. Probably gets, what even happens? I can see a scenario where, these two players get pressured to agree a draw or something, because the position is actually, if the queen's on g4, black's actually better because he's got queen and knight the queen, so he can push on for ages with that. Who knows what happens then? But obviously if it's on the other square, it's just completely one for white because he just wins the queen. And again, all I'm thinking here is flashbacks to when I was a junior, and high school players, try it on, and with no after present, there's very little good that can come from this, because people can lie, they can, and a lot of the people who are just watching, they just want to stop the drama. They don't really care about what actually was the truth of what happened. So you might see something like, pressure to agree a draw. And also, let's say you were 1500s played here. What happens then? Nobody really cares about their game. Again, not a lot can do. Pretty lame situation. I think the Grandmaster here, kind of, considering he's not a junior, he's like, I don't know, 40s or whatever, but it doesn't look good for him. He's essentially just tried it on. So eventually we get to the right decision, but it took about 10 minutes, and yeah, he resigned. And some further bad sportsmanship to end, they won't shake hands. Which shows you the bad spirit it's being played in, because clearly they were just out to win by any means necessary. This one's a weird one. So the entire team arrived late because they weren't told what time the round was happening. And this was, one of the main teams, Hikaru, Aruja, all these top players for WR team. And I actually think they made a mistake here in actually playing. So they came late. So we can see here. So he has 1 minute on the clock. But, and I think this is important, he does actually play the game. And you can see all the players like running in, with some of them starting with like 28 seconds on their clock. And I find it funny, but I actually think they made a big mistake here, because by playing, it kind of makes the situation a little bit different, I think. They were quite lucky to get away with this. So essentially, miscommunication about what time the round started, but all 6 of them came, and with less time on their clock, played a game of chess. Now, if all 6 of them had come late and they just refused to play, and so it'd be 6-0, but it'd be defaults, I think the appeal about having the match replayed would have a lot more weight, because they hadn't actually played the game. The fact that they've actually played the game, I actually think the team they're playing, I think they're playing Germany here, Germany and Friends, or whatever it's called. I actually think they were kind of hard done by, because the German team actually won this, not fair and square, because they got more time on the clock, but they still won. And let's say for example, our team here, let's say they managed to beat the German team. Let's say they won, I don't know, 5-1 somehow. Let's say, we know Hikaru is very good at Blitz and Bullet, Alareza too, and they'd somehow manage to win. Would they still appeal? And I think they wouldn't. I think they'd just go, okay, fair enough, we won 4-2. We came late, but oh well, that's what it is. But because they all lost, they then made the appeal, which I think is kind of crazy, and I'm really surprised they got away with it, to be honest. Because once you've actually started, and once you've actually started playing the game, you've got the double jeopardy, because the German team couldn't really win in this situation, because they had to win the game, even though they had more time, they had to actually win that game, which was still going to be a tough game. And then they got told here, so we can go to the decision, and we'll just fast forward to that. So again, the arbiter's not really sure I think they've emailed FIDE to get some sort of clarification after a massive debate. And in the end, they've come to this decision. So the appeals people have said, because of the lack of communication, they're going to have to replay the entire team game, which makes sense. But again, we have this situation where they wouldn't have done this if they hadn't have lost. And obviously the German team aren't done by here, I think, because of that reason. Because again, they're in double jeopardy, If they'd lost the game that they played, even with more time, it would have stood. But because they won, the team complained and they got the decision in their favour. Another thing that's been mentioned to me is that the actual team itself that was complaining here had an unfair advantage, because essentially the person who made this event, the multi-millionaire, billionaire, whatever, who basically flew all these people to London, Hikaru, all these top players, and he's the owner of the team. If he puts pressure on the organisers that he himself bankrolled, obviously they're going to side with him, because the only reason there's the rules in this tournament where there's one amateur on board is so that he can play. Well, supposedly anyway. So this sort of thing, kind of, you feel sorry for the German team. I think the rules were actually applied wrongly here. They got pretty lucky. And I think Anish Giri here makes that point quite well when he talks to Hikaru.
If you would have won the first time, you would have won. Now you lost, now you appeal and play again.
Big expert in law. Since when?
Think about it.
Since when did you become so prominent in law?
Think about it. Fair play.
Future president. Yeah. In the room.
And I think you can kind of tell actually by the way these players are smiling, they know they got away with something here. They know they shouldn't have done this. Yeah, and I think Anish Giri is right here because you know full well that if they'd won 6-0 with less time, they'd have kept the result. So yeah, I think bad decision here by the appeals team. Kind of obviously, because you can't have that situation of double jeopardy. They should have just if they wanted to appeal it, they should have just not played. Because if it was 6 defaults, then you wouldn't have that double jeopardy. You just have it'd be because you've spent a lot. It's a lot of brain power as well to play. So she just not played. Once you play, then you're kind of agreeing to what's happened. I think anyway. This one's between Neil Surin and Faustino Oro, who's Prodigy, and this is less controversial. I feel like the position is so clearly better for white in the position where the drama happens that it doesn't matter as much. But the thing to think about is what happens if the position is winning for black and the same thing happens. So let's have a quick look. So Oro plays Queen f6, and now it's completely won for white, and here he essentially presses the clock without making a move. But he does kind of touch his queen if you look at it closely. So again, you can see here, look what he does with the queen. So the question here is, the rule's quite obvious here that essentially Neil Surin should just get an extra, I think, like a minute. And this happens all the time when someone makes an illegal move in Blitz bullet and pressing the clock without making a move is illegal. The opponent just gets an extra minute. So fairly simple there. But the question is, what happens if the queen moving is wrong, and to win he needs to say move his rook or something, and black will say winning. The question here, although it would make it really awkward, is would touch move applied for the queen, because he did touch it, and you can see situations where he claimed he didn't because it was like really fast happening. But anyway, in this game, it didn't matter so much because this position is so overwhelming. You've got checkmate coming on g7 if the queen moves, and also if he doesn't move, he's just going to take the queen and then it's just going to be lost. So it didn't really matter too much. So the answer just came. I think it was Lance just added the minute or two, and yeah, ended up resigning. These illegal moves happen all the time, and if you're going to play Blitz or Rapid Play, particularly if you're not at GM level, you're going to have to prepare if you play a Blitz tournament of like 9 rounds, and maybe 2 or 3 of them, your opponent's going to, with you both having less than 10 seconds on the clock, is going to make an illegal move, and you're just going to have to stop the clock by pressing the middle button on the clock, and then you're just going to have to be able to give you a minute. And it happens all the time. You know, my last Blitz tournament, it happened in a couple of the rounds. And it could happen to you as well. Just remember, you're just going to lose a minute on your clock. There's nothing too much to worry about. The problem is with things like touch move and stuff, where whether the ruling on it can affect the game, whether you're going to win or lose. This one involves Anish Giri, and it's on touch move. This is actually my experience at all time controls, but especially Blitz and Rapid, the most difficult one, because unless there is video, even here with video, it's really difficult to tell if someone's touched, especially when they're hovering. You know, they do a thing where, you know, they're considering to make a move, they've got the hand sort of round the pieces, but they're not quite touching, and you can't really tell. What tends to happen is someone's about to make a move, and then they suddenly realise, oh no, I don't want to make that move. Maybe it loses or something. And you can see here, Anish Giri hovering, and then does he touch it? Does he not touch it? So obviously, if he moves to knight, it's very bad for him, and it does seem like he does touch it. Now in the game, his opponent, when Anish made the move after not moving the knight, his opponent clearly thought he had touched the knight and brought the arbiter in. This is always difficult, but there is at least a camera. As you can see, the actual angle is very difficult to tell whether he did or not. So they end up looking at the camera. It's entirely possible here that Anish Giri doesn't actually know whether he touched it or not, because maybe it only slightly touched with his finger. So you can't really tell if he just brushed something. So I don't think he's trying it on here. But it's probably not a good idea to hover with your hand over pieces in general, especially in Blitz, where your opponent might think you've touched something, especially if they want you to touch something. You know, they want you to move something that loses, and you put your hand over it. Probably not smart. So, after having looked at the video, arbiter makes a ruling. Interestingly, Anish Giri actually asks, when the arbiter says it's not clear where he's touched it or not, Anish actually asks if he can get more time on his clock. Because basically, if you make a wrongful claim, you often get like a minute extra added, because your opponent's basically wasted the time, they did your concentration to make a wrongful thing. Otherwise, someone could just let's say they wanted to throw you off, they could just make a claim every other move, they could just do it every single move, make a claim. They don't care whether it's right or wrong, just to throw you off. So Anish is asking for extra time because of the, not, in his opinion, wrongful claim. And he just explains why. So interestingly, the arbiter says no, which is interesting because it's not conclusive. Maybe he felt it was good faith appeal about touching. So probably the right decision by the arbiter, but again, could be contentious, especially if Anish lost on time, which he didn't. So now the big thing here is that Anish went on to win this game. So the way chess works is, because the decision went against him earlier, the player that lost would probably think that this was the reason why, but I don't think it was. I think Anish actually outplayed him in the ending. So I don't think it was, it did make an effect, but I don't think he has as much complaint as some of the others that we've shown. But yeah, I can see why he wasn't happy, especially with the video showing that he actually did touch it, maybe. Yeah, so I don't think either player was at fault here, because I don't think Anish really knew if he touched it or not. But maybe he did. So overall, a lot of crazy decisions by the arbitering team, actually, especially the replaying of the Germany match. I thought was pretty crazy. I think they were very hard done by. A lot of them, like the one with Grandmaster against Livio, I thought wasn't good. He tried it on. It reminded me of what some people can be like, especially when there's no cameras on. Yeah, very interesting. And give thoughts in the comments below.